Alright, Jonah has 2 large baskets of blocks that need to be organized. There are 50 blocks in each container. Container A has 28 red blocks, 14 yellow blocks, and 8 green blocks. Container B has 28 yellow blocks, 14 green blocks, and 8 red blocks. Jonah bets her sister that if she can choose a green block at random from both containers, Jonah will do all the organizing. Jonah's sister thinks the bet is unfair and would rather bet on Jonah choosing a red block from both containers at random. Which bet has a better chance of occurring, choosing a green block from each container or choosing a red block from each container? Alright, so remember the probability. You first need to know the total number of possible outcomes. So there are, on draw 1, we could draw a red, and then on draw 2, we could draw a yellow. Draw 1, we could draw a red, and then we could draw a green. Draw 1, we could draw a red, and then we could draw a red. Draw 1, we could draw a yellow or a yellow. Or we could draw a yellow and then a green, or a yellow, then a red. Or we could draw a green block and then a yellow, or a green block and then a green block, or a green block and then a red block. So these are all of our possible outcomes. Now we just got to find our numbers to it. So a red has 28 different ways, and timesing a yellow has 28 different ways. A red block again has 28 different ways, times how many different ways for a green block? That's 14. A red block, you can pull out 28 different red blocks out of the first container, times how many options could you do in the second one? 8. So this is going to be a yellow. Again, a yellow in the first container, there's 14 different ways you could do that, times the 28 different ways you could draw it in the second container. And we're going to continue in this pattern. So again, there's 14 different ways to draw yellow from the first block, and then 14 different ways to draw green. 14 different ways to draw yellow from the first container times the 8 different ways to draw red in the second container. There's 8 different ways to draw green in the first container times 28 in the second, different ways to draw yellow in the second container. There's 8 different ways to draw green in the first container times 14 different ways to draw green in the second container. There are, again, 8 different ways to draw green from the first container and 8 different ways to draw green and red in the second container. So now we're going to find all of these and add them up. So our possible outcomes are all of these options added together. So I'm just going to go 28 times 28 plus our 28 times 14 plus the 28 times 8 plus the 14 times 28 plus the 14 times 14 plus the 14 times 8 plus the 8 times 28 plus the 8 times 14 plus the 8 times 8. There's 2,500 different ways to draw out of this container. So now if we look at, they want to just focus on the green and green or the red and red. So if we focus on that, just pulling a red is 28 times 8. There's 224 different ways to draw a red and then a red. Well, then the probability of drawing a red and then a red is equal to 224 divided by 2,500. 24 divided by 2,500 comes out to be 0.896. And then if we focus on just probability of that shifted this, green and green. Green and green again was 8 in the first one and 14 different ways in the second one, so that's 112. So the probability of pulling a green and then a green is equal to 112 divided by 2,500. Oh. I'm not sure how come that's not allowing me to just tab this first one. Which equals 0.0448. So which one is less? Well, 8% is definitely greater than 4%, so rolling the reds twice is actually more likely. So I'm going to look for these numbers. Choosing a red block is 0.0896%, and choosing a green block was 0.44, so choosing 2 red blocks is more likely. And that's one way. Another way is just using observation by noticing that there's 28 red blocks and 8 red blocks here. So that's a total of 26 red blocks total. And then for green blocks, there's a total of 22. So you could just base that and say, okay, well, red blocks has 4 more, so I know that there's going to be a higher chance of choosing a red block. And you could eliminate these by choosing the red block that has the highest one. However, it comes into play right here because 0.0896 is still higher, is not actually higher than 0.156. So actually, you could answer this question based on that. Just knowing that there was more red blocks than green blocks, you could look through and say, look for the probabilities and see which probability of the red was larger than the probability of the green. And that happens here because 0.08 is larger than 0.04. And that's happening here. However, it does happen here as well. So that's where you would calculate this to find the definite probabilities. However, that would eliminate your choices to either this one or this one just by knowing and observing that there was more red than green.